Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith is drawing some head coaching buzz around the National Football League. He's being requested for certain interviews, for certain jobs around the NFL coaching landscape right now. So there is a possibility that he is not back with the Pittsburgh Steelers next year as their OC. And if he does get a head coaching job today, we're going to be breaking down the offensive coordinator candidates that I think would be good fits with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the ones that I think are maybe more realistic, and then some of the ones that maybe don't have a ton of connections to the Steelers, but I like. We'll be discussing them all on today's show. We got a lot of names to discuss on today's program, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because if you don't want to miss a story for the Pittsburgh Steelers during the 2026 offseason, if the Steelers make coaching changes, if they make a big trade, whatever the case may be, we're going to be covering every single rumor, every single news story, breaking news or otherwise, here on Steelers Talk. That's why we're the number one name for Steelers news here on YouTube. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to join our family. Now, before we start, we get into the lists of names here. I do want to point out that Arthur Smith, in my opinion, is most likely going to be back in 2026. It seems like Mike Tomlin, the head coach, will be back next year, and it seems like he's pleased with the way Arthur Smith has coordinated the offense this year. Also, there's a chance Aaron Rodgers returns for another season, and he has a really good relationship with Arthur Smith. He really likes him as a play caller. So if Rodgers is back, which seems like as high of a possibility as it really ever has been in his Steelers tenure, I would say Art has a really good chance of being back next year. Now, there's a chance that he gets a head coaching job, but I think there's other hotter names on the market, and I don't think Art ends up getting poached this year. But if Art does end up leaving, the next OC here in Pittsburgh will likely have some sort of connection to Mike Tomlin, Arthur Smith, or Aaron Rodgers. All right. In this business, guys, like any business, it's who you know almost more than what you know. And maybe that's not the way it should be, but that's the way the world works. And, we'll discuss some of the guys that aren't connected to the Steelers that I would love later in the show. But we're going to start today's list with guys that I think have connections to the Steelers that would be maybe a little bit more realistic than some of the names that are being thrown out there on Steelers Twitter right now. But before we get into that, what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Should the Pittsburgh Steelers part ways with Arthur Smith this offseason? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. I know there's a lot of Steelers fans that don't like Arthur Smith and don't like his offense, so let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. Just a second here, I'm going to let you guys know about our sponsor today. While I talk about our sponsor, simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. With that, you guys can go to our website here, chatsports.com/AFC North, to pick up your officially licensed 2025 AFC North Championship gear for your Pittsburgh Steelers. This is going to be a season, guys, that I will never forget, because this is going to be the year that Aaron Rodgers came in to Pittsburgh and won us a division championship. It's going to be the first time as the host of this show that the Steelers win a division championship. So I already have my hat and t-shirt on their way, guys. I can't wait to wear them on the show. But if you guys want yours today, you can go chatsports.com/AFC North. And what's even better, guys, is that part of the proceeds of every purchase you make when you click our link goes back to us here at Steelers Talk. So if you want to help out the channel and you want a piece of memorabilia here to remember this season by, go chatsports.com/AFC North to make it happen today. All right, so we'll start here with the connected offensive coordinator candidates for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll start with the quarterbacks coach, Tom Arth, and this would be the classic Tomlin hire. Hire the quarterbacks coach in the building, all this different stuff. I'm sure Rodgers would like this because he's really close with Tom Arth. But personally, I think I speak for all Steelers fans when we would probably rather do an outside hire than, elevate somebody. I think we all have PTSD from that sort of situation. So we'll go to Zac Robinson first here, former Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator. Now, I would say, his tenure in Atlanta, he was a big-time OC candidate a couple years ago, and he was, even being linked to the Steelers by some people. He ends up being hired by Raheem Morris and the Atlanta Falcons to be their OC, and my guess is, he's going to come pretty highly recommended by Raheem, who is very close with Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin. So if Mike reaches out to Raheem and says, what do you think of Zac Robinson, a former McVay guy? He's probably going to say, yeah, he would be a great fit with your culture, all this different stuff. So like I said, it's not about what you know necessarily, it's about who you know, but also Robinson does come from the McVay tree, which is one of the more prosperous offensive coaching trees in football. So I could see that being a possibility. possibility. Also, Josh Grizzard, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator, recently fired by Todd Bowles there in Tampa after, he was one of many coaches in Tampa. They got fired this year after a collapse in the second half of the season from Tampa Bay. They completely conceded the NFC North, or NFC South, I should say, to the Carolina Panthers. But Tomlin is also close with Todd Bowles, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bowles still has a high opinion on Grizzard. I'm pretty sure Tampa's ownership and front office kind of forced his hand and said, hey, if you're going to stay on, you got to fire like all of your staff, and we got to retool here. But I'm sure he probably still has a pretty high opinion of Grizzard. And if Tomlin gives Bowles a call, I'm guessing he'll get probably a pretty positive review. And Grizzard was the OC this year after led the Bucs offense to a very successful first half of the season. And then last year he was under Liam Cohen as the pass game coordinator in Tampa. So, he runs a very similar style of offense to Liam Cohen, who is one of the brighter offensive minds in the National Football League. So that would be one certainly to keep your eye on as well. And we got another former Tampa Bay offensive coordinator here, somebody that was heavily linked to the Steelers the last time they were looking for an offensive coordinator, and that's Byron Leftwich of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Leftwich, of course, is a former Steeler. He played for Pittsburgh back in 2008, took a little bit of a break, went to Tampa Bay in 2009, then came back to finish his career through 2010 and in 2012. So, he was here in Pittsburgh during the Mike Tomlin era. He would kind of know what's up when it comes to being a Pittsburgh Steeler and being in this building and being in this culture. But also, Leftwich was a big Bruce Arians guy, okay? Like, he was Arians' protege in Tampa. Arians once said towards the end of his career that, if he couldn't have Byron Leftwich on his staff, he wouldn't coach anymore. Like, he really cared about Leftwich that much. And then also, when it comes to, working with an older quarterback, like if he has to work with Aaron Rodgers, he's worked with, a 43-year-old Tom Brady before and won a Super Bowl with that guy. So he's got that experience. And, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they're two guys that like to have a lot of control at the line of scrimmage, very detail-oriented offenses that are really driven by the pre-snap processing of the quarterback. So it would be a fit in that regard. And then also, when it comes to this style of offense, kind of that no-risk-it, no-biscuit style of offense, Tomlin won, the only Super Bowl of his career with Bruce Arians as his OC in this style of offense. So if Tomlin is trying to, reinvigorate that, Super Bowl spark, maybe you want to, bring back this style of offense here in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers under center next year, or whoever they have at quarterback next year. But then another guy here that you can consider is Dwayne Ledford, who is the former Atlanta Falcons O-line coach. And Ledford is considered to be one of, if not the best offensive line coach in the National Football League right now. He helped develop that Atlanta Falcons offensive line, which is one of the best in football right now, with Arthur Smith. He got hired by Arth back in 2021. And, if you want to, continue to develop this young offensive line here in Pittsburgh, and you want somebody with some play calling experience, he was a run game coordinator in college for a couple teams as well. Like, this guy knows what he's talking about in terms of developing O-line talent and getting the run game going. I'm sure he'd come highly recommended by Arthur Smith as well. So that's certainly a name to keep your eye on as well. Then another guy that's an Arthur Smith type of connection is Dave Ragone, who is currently the quarterback's coach for the LA Rams. So he's a McVay guy and he's an Arthur Smith guy. He was the OC under Arthur Smith in Atlanta when of course Smith was the head coach there. So Ragone is kind of seen as kind of one of these next up-and-coming McVay assistants that's going to eventually get offensive coordinator and head coaching opportunities. And obviously right now he's coaching quarterbacks with the Rams. Matthew Stafford is having an MVP caliber season this year inside Ragone's quarterback room. So I think that this guy's going to get an offensive coordinator job this year. If the Steelers are looking to hire somebody other than Arthur Smith to be their new OC, I think he's somebody they would consider. But then also sticking with the McVay tree here, Mike LaFleur, his connection would certainly be with the Aaron Rodgers connection that he has with Matt LaFleur. Plus, Matt LaFleur coached with Arthur Smith in Tennessee back in 2018 during that kind of stretch there before LaFleur. He ended up going to Green Bay, and Arthur Smith took over as the OC there with Mike Vrabel as head coach. So, there's that connection. But, of course, Aaron Rodgers had some of the most success of his career, won 2 MVPs, towards the end of his time with Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. So I'm sure, but he's still on good terms with Matt. I'm sure he would, certainly be okay with his brother Mike coming in and calling the plays here in Pittsburgh. Again, if Rodgers comes back for another year. But I'm sure Mike himself is looking for an offensive coordinating, opportunity, because he's only called plays once in his career, and it was with the Jets under Robert Saleh with a young quarterback, and it just didn't work out. He was bottom 5 in the league in production those 2 years. And then every other year, he's been, either behind Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, 2 guys that call offensive plays. So LaFleur is one of these guys that I think needs to go somewhere else to call plays and make a name for himself before he gets any head coaching opportunities. Maybe he could get that opportunity here in Pittsburgh. Then Todd Downing, the New England Patriots wide receiver coach. The connection with Downing is with 2 people, Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers. Downing was on the staff there in Tennessee when Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator with the Titans. Actually, they called Todd Downing to get their opinion on Aaron Rodgers when the Steelers were doing their research on whether or not to bring in Aaron this offseason. And, Downing was also, Rodgers' play caller, the interim OC with the Jets after they demoted Nathaniel Hackett midway through the 2024 season. Now, the Jets offense wasn't very successful with Downing as the offensive coordinator, but there are connections there, and this definitely seems like a hire that the Pittsburgh Steelers would definitely consider if they're looking for a new OC. Then Adam Stenavich, the Green Bay offensive coordinator, he was there with Matt LaFleur as the O-line coach when Aaron Rodgers was there, so there's certainly a connection between Rodgers and Stenavich. Also, obviously, Stenavich is the offensive coordinator now under Matt LaFleur, so you'd think he'd bring in a LaFleur/McVay style offense here to Pittsburgh. So that's certainly one to keep your eye on as well if there's an opening for this job here in Pittsburgh. And then you get to the final one here with the connected candidates, and it's Luke Getsy, who's currently a senior assistant for the Green Bay Packers, but he's formerly the quarterback's coach there in Green Bay, and he's one of Aaron Rodgers' best friends in the entire world, all right? Aaron Rodgers really pounded the table for Getsy to get an offensive coordinator opportunity, and he eventually did. Once Rodgers left, Getsy ended up going to the Chicago Bears to work with Justin Fields, and listen, man, do I really blame Getsy that much for not doing that well with Justin Fields, especially a younger Justin Fields who was really in the thick of trying to figure out how to be an NFL quarterback? I mean, Fields is just not panned out as a quarterback in multiple different destinations with a number of different offensive coordinators. I still think Getsy could be somebody that could potentially work, especially if he's brought here to work with Aaron Rodgers and kind of reinvent that offense that they ran in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur at head coach. I think it's something to consider. Plus, Getsy is also a Pittsburgh native, all right? He's somebody that knows, what it means to be a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. He understands how important this football team is to this city. So, I think that this is a name where people remember him for, the terrible years in Chicago and all that different stuff and quote-unquote ruining Justin Fields. But, maybe Justin Fields was just already ruined and, Getsy, didn't have a great opportunity there. So, I think that's one to consider as well. And no, I'm not going to be putting Nathaniel Hackett on this list. F that, all right? No way. I mean, Rodgers, I know he likes Nathaniel Hackett, but he has gone to a number of different places where he's run an offense, and it's been completely dog shit, plain and simply, guys. Even with Rodgers here, I don't care if you want to get one of Rodgers' guys like Stenavich or Getsy or something like that. Just don't make it Nathaniel Hackett, please. Just don't do it. All right, now, before we get into the rest of today's show, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you're enjoying the program, if you enjoy the in-depth analysis that we do every single day here on Steelers Talk, I greatly appreciate your support. It helps out the channel, helps push our videos out in front of new audiences when you click that thumbs up icon. So I really do appreciate it. And now we'll finish up today's video with some good offensive coordinator candidates that aren't really linked to Pittsburgh in many ways, at least not that I could find, but I think would be good OCs somewhere in this league, and I would certainly like to have him here in Pittsburgh. We'll start with Mike McDaniel, and I think that he's somebody that Steelers fans would really like. It's just he's not really connected to this team in any way. Same thing goes for Brian Dable and Grant Udinski from Jacksonville. Like, maybe you can call Brian Flores, and maybe he can give a call to Udinski, who they worked together in Minnesota for a short time there. But I honestly think that that's probably not going to happen either. But certainly those are guys that I would like to have. Todd Monken, Frank Smith, and Darrell Bevell from Miami. I really respect his offensive minds as well. Darrell Bevell was one of the top candidates for me the last time the Steelers needed an offensive coordinator, because I love his play calling experience. I love his experience working under Mike McDaniel in Miami. Clay Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for San Francisco, is certainly a name to keep your eye on as well, with Clint, his brother, doing so well with Seattle, and of course Kubiak or Clay getting that experience under Kyle Shanahan. He's got to be an OC hot name coming up here. And then Josh McCown, he's said no to some OC opportunities as of late, but would he say no to the Pittsburgh Steelers? I don't know. I would certainly love to have him here in the Steel City. And then some of the names that I like, maybe I don't love, is some of the other names, but names I would certainly accept. Cliff Kingsbury, formerly of the Washington Commanders. Wes Phillips, the OC with the Minnesota Vikings. Brian Griese, the quarterbacks coach in San Francisco. Tommy Rees, the former OC in Cleveland. Declan Doyle, really, really young OC working under Ben Johnson in Chicago. And then Drew Petzing, who was a part of that Arizona Cardinals regime, comes from the Sean McVay tree. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. If Arthur Smith leaves Pittsburgh, whether he's fired or whether he gets a head coaching job, who do you think would be the new offensive coordinator here in Pittsburgh? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. I just gave you a bunch of names. Pick one, or if I missed one, let me know if I missed one down there in the comment section. But that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I appreciate you guys stopping by here today. Of course, we're going to continue to get you guys great Steelers coverage all throughout the weekend as we prepare for Steelers versus the Texans on Monday Night Football here on Wild Card Week. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.